guys know when to start. All right, you can go ahead and start.
Good evening. I am so glad that you are joining us this evening for this election town hall. This is Joan Wagnon. I'm the chair of the Kansas Democratic Party, and we welcome all Democrats, all unaffiliated voters, all Republicans, because we're going to have a wonderful conversation tonight with our Democratic nominee, Paul Davis. This election cycle is a great opportunity for us to change the course of government in Kansas. We have a strong slate of candidates, and coupled with the overreach by our current governor, there's a very favorable political climate that we can take advantage of. And part of what we want to talk about tonight is to make sure that everybody goes out to vote, because that's the key to winning this election. The Brownback attacks on education and working families, women, and others are very unpopular. In fact, Governor Brownback's approval ratings hover somewhere around 30%. His extremism is unifying Kansans like never before, and we have a wonderful opportunity tonight to change that and to change it on November 5th. So we're going to have to talk about getting out to vote. But before I do that, I want you to hear from Paul Davis, our nominee. Paul, would you like to make a few introductory remarks?
Joan, thank you very much. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time to spend a little bit of your evening with us. This is a very important election coming up here on November 4th, and you're going to be able to start casting your ballots here very, very soon. There's a lot at stake for Kansas right now, and I've spent the last 12 years in the legislature fighting for public schools, fighting for working families, for health care, and I want to take that to the governor's office. You know, my parents are both educators, and so the issue of public education is just critically important. My wife and I have a 4-year-old daughter who is going to walk into a public school classroom for the very first time next year, and we're just like any other parents or grandparents out there. We want her to get the same kind of opportunities that I had growing up here in Kansas and attending public schools. Right now we have a governor who just has never made public education a priority. His first year in office, he made the largest cut to public school funding in state history, and we've seen the larger class sizes, the fees that parents are having to pay, the test scores that have gone down, and we clearly have to have somebody in the governor's office who really will make education the top priority. Our economy also is struggling. We're behind the rest of the country and virtually every economic growth indicator there is out there. We got a lot of folks that are out of work, or folks who are working jobs that they're overqualified for, and we've got to get to work to getting our economy moving again, so we're going to create the jobs that we need, not only for those Kansans like us that are here now, but the future Kansans that are going to be here. So those are the things that I've been talking about on the campaign trail, and I think of very sharp differences between Governor Brownback and I. And we need to get that message out over the next couple of weeks here so that we can win this election and we can begin restoring Kansas. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Paul. Now, just a couple of housekeeping chores. This is an evening where you can ask questions directly of Paul, and in order to do that, you have to press 0 on your telephone keypad. That will connect you with one of our volunteer operators, and then press 0 if you want to ask a question. What we're going to do tonight is take a little poll from time to time throughout the hour, and we're going to have Paul answer questions, and then we will remind you from time to time that you can speak if you press 0. So I think the first thing we want to do is try out and see how the polling works. So if you're near your phone keypad, what we want you to do is answer this question. Will you commit to voting for Paul Davis and Jill Docking for governor and lieutenant governor? Press 1 if you will make that commitment. Press 2 if you commit to voting for Paul Davis and you will encourage your friends and family to do so. So 1 is yes, I'll vote. And 2, I'll get everybody I know to vote for Paul and Jill also. Please vote now. We should have a tally on that in a little while. So while we're waiting on the tally, I think maybe we might be ready to start with our first question tonight. Keith, you are on the line, and if you would like to introduce yourself very quickly and ask your question for Paul.
Keith, go right ahead.
Yeah, hi. I've just have one small question. It's about the wages here in Kansas. I'm a industrial painter and I make pretty decent wage, but I live in a neighborhood to where both people, the man and the wife, are both working and making minimum wage and living at the poverty level. What could you do to maybe increase the minimum wage? Where do you stand on that?
Keith, thanks for that question. It's a really good question and one that I hear a lot from people all across the state. I was very proud to be heavily involved in getting our Kansas minimum wage increased. We used to have the lowest minimum wage of any state in the country. Isn't that embarrassing? And fortunately, we have been able to raise that, but I think we need to maybe take a look at whether we need to raise it again, because there are a lot of folks, the wage that they're earning is just not enough to be able to get by. The other thing that we got to do is we've got to make sure that the tax burden is equally shared by those who are the top income earners. What Governor Brownback has done over the past 4 years is he has shifted more of the tax burden on to the poor, the middle class, while millionaires have gotten big tax breaks. And that is just wrong, and I want to change that.
Very good. Keith, I hope you feel like that was the right answer to your question. I thought it was a pretty good one. And we have Donna on the line, and Donna has a question about the economy. Donna, go ahead and ask your question to Paul.
Mr. Davis, thank you for doing this evening. I'm interested in hearing you speak on specifics for your plan to better the Kansas economy, please.
Thanks, Donna, and this is also something that I like to talk about a lot because the way that Governor Brownback has gone about this, I think, is absolutely the wrong way. We have proven ways of being able to grow our economy. We've done it before, and we can absolutely do it again. One of the things that I am very proud of is being part of creating our 10-year transportation plan. Investing in infrastructure will create 175,000 jobs over the 10-year life of that plan. But Governor Brownback has taken over $1 billion out of our transportation fund in order to subsidize an economic experiment that just isn't working. We also have to invest in career and technical training. There is no doubt that a skilled, trained workforce is one of those things that every company is looking for out there, and the more that we can do to help give people the kind of skills that they need to find jobs, the more our economy is going to soar to new heights. And lastly, we have to have the very best public schools out there. Strong public schools are the very, very foundation of a stronger economy. And we've been seeing Kansas schools slipping under Sam Brownback's tenure, and we can't do that anymore.
Great. Thank you very much. Now, all of you who are listening, this is a teletown hall with Paul Davis on election issues. Paul will take your questions. If you wish to ask a question, please press 0 on your telephone keypad. That will connect you with one of our volunteer operators. And then Just press 0 and you can ask a question. So, Margaret, you're next up. Margaret is an educator, and she has a question for you, Paul. Go ahead, Margaret.
Thank you for taking my call. I am an educator here in Kingman, and Governor Brownback took away due process from tenured teachers. Would you bring that back, and why or why not?
Margaret, first of all, thanks for what you do. Both of my parents were teachers before they retired, and I have just such a great appreciation for all of the school teachers we've got across the state. It was absolutely wrong what happened with the teacher due process rights, and Sam Brownback never should have signed that bill to do away with those rights. And I would very much like to work to restore the due process rights that teachers have enjoyed for many, many decades. The system works just fine as is, and we never should have taken those rights away.
Any follow-up there? Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, I was also going to ask what other kinds of ways that he might bring money back into the school systems too.
Okay.
Well, what we need to do is stop this economic experiment that the governor is conducting because it isn't working, and it's driving the state deep into debt. Those are dollars that we need to be putting into our public schools. So one of the first things that I want to do is to end the Brownback economic experiment and start restoring the cuts that have been made to our public schools. That is going to be my very, very top priority as governor.
Thank you, Paul. For those of you that may have just joined us, this is an election teletown hall talking with gubernatorial candidate Paul Davis about his plans for 2014 and beyond. If you would like to ask Paul Davis a question, you can do that easily by pressing 0 on your keypad, and you'll be connected with one of our volunteers, and they'll help you from there. Remember, it's press 0, and that will get you there. Let's try just another poll question and see how this might come out. So get ready with your fingers on your keypad. What do you think the most important issue Paul Davis and the Democrats should focus on this November? Press 1 if your answer is strengthening the economy. Press 2 to improve our schools. Press 3 for creating a fairer tax system. Are you ready to vote? 1 for strengthening the economy, 2 improving the schools, or 3 creating a fairer tax system. Please vote now. And remember, if you have a question for Paul, press 0 to ask a question. Merrill, are you ready? Merrill's from Meade County, and she has a question for you, Paul. We'll get the poll results in a little while.
This is Merle from Meade County, and there is a what's called Cimarron Wind Project in Meade and Seward County, and it could generate 900 megawatts of electrical power. But I think the holdup is that there are no transmission lines to get the power from here to states to the east, like Illinois and Indiana and so forth, where they need the power. What will you do to further this project?
Yeah. Thank you, Merle. As we all know, if you step outside on most days in Kansas, it's pretty darn windy. And we are, depending upon the study, the second or third windiest state in the country. So we've got a great resource. And who would have ever thought years ago that we could put up wind turbines and we could create energy out of all this? It's a terrific thing for the state, but many areas don't have the ability to be able to carry that electricity from the wind farm to where it can create a source to power our homes and other things that we operate electronically. And so we are working to create more transmission capacity. We do that through a multi-state entity called the Southwest Power Pool, and it's something that is going to take a little bit of time, but we're making some pretty good progress. And if we can do that, we can be able to generate a lot more wind energy here, and that's only going to help Kansans and the Kansas economy.
Paul, wasn't it amazing when we were in southwest Kansas, out there in Ulysses, and driving through Meade County to see all those wind turbines going? That's just exciting to see that project going on.
Certainly is.
I think you have a Mr. Keeler from Wichita who wants to ask you a question about property taxes.
Well, yes, I have a question about property tax. I'm retired, and I live in a home that most of these people around here are paying $2,000 to $3,000 a year on property tax, and it seems like we have to pay to live in our own homes, a lot more than we should. And I just wonder if there'd be any way that they could lower property tax, put more money back in the economy in Kansas, and we could do more to create jobs if we had more money. And
boy, Mr. Keeler, I couldn't agree with you more. And I have been a very, very vocal proponent of trying to reduce property taxes. And your situation is one that so many people across this state are in. When you're living on a fixed income, and maybe you've fortunately paid off your house, but your property tax bill just keeps going up year after year. Unfortunately, what Sam Brownback has done over these past several years is he has shifted a lot of the tax burden onto the property taxpayer, and it's getting out of control in a lot of different parts around this state. And so I've said that when we get to cutting taxes in Topeka, the first thing I want to do is cut property taxes, because that's the tax that needs to be cut the most.
Paul, I think it was a study that was done at Wichita State that pointed out property taxes have risen $300 million since Brownback has been in office. So that's something to really think about. Catherine, are you on the line? You have a question for Paul Davis on helping the mentally ill?
Yes, I am disabled, and I would like to know what you will do to help us mentally ill that's trying to get out and learn again. What are you going to do about that? There's a lot of people like me.
There are, Catherine, and I really appreciate you asking that question. My wife is a psychologist, and I hear every day from her about the mental health needs of Kansans. And we have some great organizations around the state that provide services to people who have mental illness, and we need to do more to support those organizations. A lot of them have seen big funding cutbacks over the past several years, and they've had to cut services. It just breaks your heart to see a situation where somebody who is desperately in need of help can't be served by their community mental health center. And I think we just need to do a much, much better job of supporting those organizations and doing all we can to help them.
Just remember, you are on a teletown hall meeting with gubernatorial candidate Paul Davis. This is sponsored by the Kansas Democratic Party, but we welcome Democrats, unaffiliated voters, and Republicans, because we're trying to change the future of Kansas. One of our questions is coming from Barbara in Topeka, and she's concerned about small business. Barbara, go ahead.
Yeah, I own a small business. I would say it's a mom-and-pop business. I would like to know if there's anything that you can do to help us stay in business, because we've lost a lot of little shops.
We certainly have, Barbara, and small business is absolutely the backbone of the economy, and I think oftentimes people in government focus too much on trying to land that real big employer and trying to lure somebody from out of state when we've got a lot of great small employers that really are the job creators and the ones who create economic activity across our state. And so one of the things that I think that the state needs to do a much better job of is trying to provide resources to people who are either own small businesses right now or wanting to start them. Starting a business, as you probably know, Barbara, is kind of a daring thing, and it's not easy. And the more help that you can get from people who know how to do that, know how to look at a financial plan, try to manage inventory, look at a marketing plan. There are lots of people out there who can provide those resources, and I think that we can do a much, much better job of helping to support those small businesses that are out there already, and then help those people who are interested in starting small businesses.
You're listening to a teletown hall meeting with gubernatorial candidate Paul Davis. If you would like to ask Paul a question, press 0 on your keypad. One of our volunteers will talk with you and put you in the queue. Right now we have only 2 or 3 people that are waiting to ask questions, so this would be a good time for you to press 0 and get in line. Paul, we have Becky from Bel Air who has a question about the tuition burden for students.
Hi, I'm Becky, and I teach at Wichita State. And I really am cognizant of the fact that public schools need a lot of help because I have a public school teaching husband. But I see the tuition burden on the university students that I teach, and it is really tough for them. So how do you convince the state legislature to allocate more funds for higher education to cut that burden of tuition for students who are currently enrolled?
Well, Becky, I have represented a legislative district that has a university in it for 12 years now, and I have a lot of students that live in my district, and so this is a frequent conversation that I have. I tell you, the tuition levels right now are frankly getting a bit out of control, and we are seeing a lot of kids who are making decisions to not go to college because they can't afford it. And we're also seeing tremendous numbers of kids who are coming out of school with huge amounts of student loan debt. My wife and I are still paying on her student loans, and we're trying to save money for our daughter's college education, and I'm frankly terrified of what that's going to cost 14 years down the road. So I think that the legislature and the state has got to stop this practice of cutting support for higher education and then sort of looking the other way when we allow tuition to go up. And I think we need to engage the universities in a conversation about how we will try to provide them with some of the resources that they want, but we're also going to keep tuition at a certain level because I'm very, very concerned about too many kids that are just getting priced out of a college education or just being soaked with way too much student loan debt.
We've been taking an informal poll as we continue through this teletown hall meeting, and the poll question that's being asked right now is, what do you think is the most important issue Paul Davis and his team should focus on after November? And the choices are strengthening the economy, improving our schools, or creating a fairer tax system. If you haven't voted and would like to vote, right now you can vote on this issue. Press 1 if you think strengthening our economy is the primary focus. Press 2 if you're for improving our schools, and press 3 if you want to create a fairer tax system. And we're still tabulating those, so there's time to vote. And again, if you want to ask a question for Paul Davis, who is in our offices tonight talking with voters across the state, press 0, and you'll be connected to our group of volunteers, and they'll put you in line, and he'll answer your question. so far we've had a pretty good evening, Paul. We've had everything from taxes to wind energy and services for people. Now we've got one about farms. Amanda, are you on the line? Would you like to ask Representative Davis your question? Go ahead. Amanda? Well, we may have lost Amanda. She wanted to know how you were going to help farmers. But if she gets back on the line, we'll come back to her. Margaret, are you there from Kansas City? Margaret?
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for taking this question. I want to know about the utilities. Here in Kansas City, Kansas, in Wyandotte County, we have utility bills that come to us that we do not understand, and the taxes are so great. But I understand they're not regulated out of Topeka up in that energy thing. And I wanted to know if there's some kind of way that you could take a look at that. Why are we paying so much? Because we compared our bills the other night, and a lady that lives 2 blocks from me is paying less taxes, and I'm paying a goo gobs of taxes.
Well, let me tell you, utility bills have gone up significantly over the past couple of years, and I will tell you that when I opened my last utility bill, it made me kind of angry because it's just getting out of control for a lot of folks. And in Wyandotte County, you've got a little bit of a different system because you have a utility that is run by your unified government there, and so their regulatory structure is much different than regular other utilities like Westar and so forth. But one of the things that I am very committed to doing is making sure that our Kansas Corporation Commission, which regulates utility rates, and they approve or deny any increases out there, is going to have people on it who are going to keep the ratepayer foremost in their mind. And I think what we've had in the past is a lot of folks there that kind of look out for the utility companies first. And, we clearly have to have a good environment for utility companies to be able to operate on, and we want to have good competition out there. But we've got to keep the ratepayer in mind first because a lot of folks are just absolutely getting overtaken by increasing utility rates.
Daisy in Kansas City has been listening patiently, and she has a question for you, Paul, on CanCare. Daisy, are you still on the line?
Yes. My question is on disability. I am disabled, and I became really totally disabled mostly in the past 2 years. And it's one equipment that I need that would really help me. It's just hard to get. And last year I talked to Pat Roberts about this, and they were supposed to help me. But I haven't heard anything from him yet or his office or anyone to tell me where I can go to get this equipment. And it's a lift chair that would help me learn how to stand all over again and learn how to walk. And I know that I am not the only one out here that may need that. And for some reason, it's hard to find someone to help us to get a lift chair. And those are very important in being disabled and not able to stand.
Daisy, can I ask you, who do you have your insurance through? Are you on the CanCare program by chance?
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. There have been a whole host of problems with the CanCare program, and this is one of these things that Governor Brownback has done over the past couple of years that just didn't working at all, and it's especially not working for folks who've got disabilities. One of the things that I want to do is move people with disabilities out of the CanCare program because, frankly, it's just not working for them. But what I might suggest you do, Daisy, is call if you know who your state representative is or your state senator, and give them a call and ask them if they can help you get in touch with the people at CanCare and help you get what you need, because a lot of these out-of-state insurance companies are running CanCare, and they're not very responsive to people, and you need somebody who can be your advocate and help you out there. And so, give your state legislator a call, and hopefully they can help you.
Paul, we have some information about Daisy that when she called in. Daisy, we'll keep that and maybe call you back. Would that be okay to make sure you know who to go to for some help?
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay, because we don't want to give your phone number on air, but we will follow up and make sure that we can get back in touch with you, because you're in the Kansas City area, right?
Yes, and I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, we'll do what we can to see if we can help you out there. Thank you for calling in. This is a teletown hall meeting with gubernatorial candidate Paul Davis. He's going to be on with us for another half an hour, and it's real easy to get in to talk to him. So far, he's answered everybody's question. You may have to wait for about 5 minutes, but it's informative. The line is open for Democrats and unaffiliateds and Republicans and just voters and people who want to know what's going on in Kansas. And we would encourage you to press 0 if you would like to talk or ask a question, and that will connect you to one of our volunteers, and we can put you in the queue. There are only 2 in the queue right now. So, Rachel, you're next, and Rachel has a question for Paul about advanced ballots.
Hi. Paul, I just wanted to thank you for running. I am very excited to cast my vote in November. I was wondering how to go about getting an advanced ballot.
Well, that's a very timely question, Rachel, because we are starting advanced balloting here very quickly. It's a great way to be able to vote, especially if you've got a busy schedule. Sometimes it's hard to get to the polls on Election Day, and so anyone in Kansas can request a mail-in advance ballot and have that sent to their home. And all you have to do is complete the ballot, and you can mail it right back to the election office before Election Day, and it will be counted. So starting tomorrow, local election offices will begin mailing ballots to Kansas voters. And if you'd like to take advantage of a mail-in advance ballot, you can request that ballot by using an online tool that we have on our website. So I want to give you this website real quick. It is Davis for Kansas, and 4 is spelled out F-O-R, davisforkansas.com/vote early. davisforcom/vote early. So do that, and you can request that through our online service. You can also, call the State Democratic Party here, and they can assist you as well.
Great. Thank you for the question. We want to see lots and lots of advanced ballots cast, and that was helpful information. I want to interrupt now and ask you a poll question to all of you that are on the line. And this is the question that we asked at the beginning, and we're going to ask it again. Will you commit to voting for Paul Davis for governor and encourage your friends and family to vote for Paul Davis on November 4th? Now, here are the directions. You press 1 if you'll vote for Paul. You press 2 if you'll commit not only to voting for Paul Davis, but you'll encourage your friends and families to do so. Cast your votes now. 1 if you'll vote for Paul. 2 if you'll vote for Paul and get your friends and neighbors to do so. And now I'd like to remind you as a participant that if you have a question, you can press 0, and that will get you in our queue. Right now we have a question from Lynn from Gary County. Lynn has a question about capers. I bet you're a state employee or a local government employee. Go ahead, Lynn.
I certainly was. Thank you, Mr. Davis. I had the opportunity to hear you at the state fair and was very impressed with what you had to say, even shook your hand. I'm a retired public school teacher, and I've paid into capers for many years. And I would like to know what you're going to do to sustain the security of CAPER retirement benefits for the Kansas employees.
Lynn, thanks for that question because it's a very, very important one for not only all those folks that are out there at CAPERS, but also for our state and the obligations that we have to so many of you who have served our state in a variety of different capacities. We, for decades, folks have been telling the state legislature and governors that not enough money was being put into the CAPERS system in order for us to keep the system solvent. 2 years ago, we took a pretty big step in trying to return the system to solvency, and I worked with a number of Republican legislators and some other Democrats in order to get that bill passed through the legislature. And what it requires us to do, though, is to make sure that we are going to have the dollars in the future to continue to uphold what I believe is the state's end of the bargain, because you all have upheld your side of the bargain, and the state's got to uphold its side of the bargain. The problem with that is if we continue down the path that Sam Brownback has us on, the state's going to be deep in debt, and it's not going to be able to make the obligations that we know are coming down the road. So we've got to have a much better state budget than what we've got right now. We've got to be fiscally responsible, and we've got to ensure that we're going to make funding CAPERS a priority into the future.
Very good. I think we want to try a new wrinkle on our poll question. Just a minute ago, I asked you to vote 1 if you were going to commit to voting for Paul Davis, and 2 if you would commit to voting for Paul and encouraging your family and friends to do so. Now I want to ask you to push 1 if you will commit to voting early for Paul. In other words, take advantage of the early voting law that we have here in Kansas. In many counties, that early voting starts tomorrow. It may start a little later than that in some of the counties, but you will be able to vote anywhere in your county ahead of the election. So here's the question again. Number 1, press 1 if you will commit to voting early for Paul Davis. Press 2 if you will commit to voting for Paul whenever. And 3 if you will commit to voting for Paul and encouraging friends and neighbors to do so. Please cast your vote now. We're watching these come in now, and they're lots of fun to see your answers. So keep voting. And don't forget, if you want to ask a question, just press 0. We have volunteers here in the office tonight that are managing the phones for us, and we certainly appreciate them. And Paul, I appreciate the fact that you're taking time tonight to talk with voters, because this is probably one of the most important things that we can do is get straight answers in an election instead of all the misinformation that flies across the airwaves. Joe in Olathe, you wanted to ask a question about bringing more jobs to Kansas. Are you still there, Joe?
Yes, I am, and thank you.
Well, go right ahead.
Thank you, Paul, and I appreciate your letting us sit in on this town hall meeting. We have lots of critical issues, and one that I think is probably the most important overall is bringing jobs back into Kansas and what you might do to actually go offshore in a proactive way and to compete nationally to bring jobs in.
Yeah. Well, Joe, as you probably know, we're not doing very well right now. We're trailing our surrounding states, and we're trailing the rest of the country in job growth, and we got to do a whole lot better. Governor Brownback's approach has been this sort of one-size-fits-all approach. Let's cut taxes for the very top income earners and hope that we create some jobs, and it just didn't work, and it isn't going to work. What we need to do, I think, is return to those proven ways of creating jobs that we have been able to be successful at in the past. I talked about transportation a little bit earlier, and investing in our infrastructure is a proven job creator. But there's obviously a whole lot more. We've got to be able to have more career and technical training opportunities for people because we know if we have a highly trained, highly skilled workforce, that companies will want to locate here. If you look at all the surveys out there about businesses who make decisions about where they're going to go, usually the very top criteria is a skilled and trained workforce. So there are some great opportunities there. Energy, as we talked a little bit about before, I think is a huge growth industry for the state in so many different capacities, whether it be wind energy or whether it be biofuels. There are a lot of really good opportunities for us to become a national leader. So we got to attack this on as many different fronts as we possibly can, Joe, if we're going to be able to really see us create jobs, because I don't want to see people leave our state because they can't find a job. If somebody lives here and they want to go to work in any field out there, we ought to have opportunities for them right here in Kansas.
Brittany, I think you've been waiting a long time to ask this question, but you wanted to ask Paul about keeping Kansas to be a safe place. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, so Paul, just thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I know that me and a lot of other Kansans really appreciate it, and we're really excited to get Common Sense back in Topeka. My question is, one of the things that makes Kansas great is that it's a safe place to raise a family. So what have you done, and what will you do to keep Kansas communities safe?
Well, Brittany, thanks for that question. This is one of those issues that is, it's a personal issue to everybody because, if you live in a community, if you live in a place where you don't feel safe, your quality of life is not very good. And we need to ensure that, we are doing all that we can to help keep our communities safe. I have worked for many years with law enforcement all across the state to look at different programs or strengthening laws that try to make our communities safer. I'm very proud that I've got the endorsement of the Fraternal Order of Police because they know that I'm somebody who can who will listen and work with them. And, they're fortunately, many Kansas communities are very safe places. But there are also a lot of places in our state that are not so safe, and we've got to do what we can to help make those communities more safe.
Thank you for that question. I think that's really important for everybody. What is also important for everybody right now is that we all pitch in and do everything we can to help Paul Davis and Jill Docking win at the ballot box in November. So I'm going to ask those of you on the line, if you would, I ask you first to make a commitment to vote. Now I would like to ask you if you will help us in this election. So here are the choices. Press 1 if you will volunteer. Press 2 if you would make a phone call or several phone calls. Press 3 if you're willing to get out and canvass and go knock on doors. Press 4 if you'll talk to friends and family and maybe send them emails. And press 5 if you'll do anything and everything. So here we go. Press 1 if you will volunteer. Press 2 if you will make phone calls. Press 3 if you will help us canvass and knock on doors. Press 4 if you will talk with your friends and families and maybe email them or call them. And press 5 if you'll do everything. And also, remember to press 0 if you have a question you want to ask. We've got 2 more waiting right now. I want to go to Scott in Wichita. Scott's a recent Wichita State University graduate, and he has a question for you, Paul.
Mr. Davis, thank you so much for your time this evening. my question is, what are your specific plans that you have for recent graduates to help improve the economy so that recent graduates will stay in the state as opposed to leaving?
Well, Scott, first of all, congratulations on getting your degree, and I hope that you have found a good job out there. And if you haven't, we need to try to help you find some more opportunities. You know, there are a lot of good things going on in some places in the state. You may be familiar with President John Bardo at Wichita State's idea of an innovation campus, which I think would create a whole lot of new kind of tech sector jobs in Wichita, and this is definitely a growing area in many colleges here. But you know, there are a lot of efforts underway that I think we need to pay more attention to in terms of trying to diversify our economy, because you know, we know that we've got a lot of people who you know, are interested in different sectors. We've been trying to grow a bioscience, life science industry in our state. There's a lot of folks that are graduating from college that are interested in those kinds of things, and they're leaving our state because we don't have opportunities for them. So I think we've got to you know, continue to look at ways that we can diversify our economies. We need to work with our universities so that we can better understand you know, who's studying what in college these days and what opportunities they're looking for, and you know, and try to find people out there in the business world who are willing to provide those opportunities and give them the support to do that.
We also have Tom in Fort Scott who is holding. Tom, do you want to ask your question? I think it's about highways.
Thank you very much. Is anybody there?
Oh, yeah.
You bet. Go right ahead,
okay.
Tom.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Davis, for listening to me. I live in Fort Scott, Kansas, born and raised here, and I'm not looking for any selfish reasons by no means, but I am a veteran from the military, and Fort Scott, Kansas is a historical site, and we have the new 69 highway going through from Kansas City to Pittsburgh, which I think is a great deal, but we keep losing our businesses, and everybody's going to, well, I'll just say point blank, we're losing them to Missouri because our tax base is so high. And now they're wanting to, I think the new highway is great, but they're wanting to build the new highway 2 miles east of us. So we're just going to end up like a ghost town. We didn't move. Fort Scott's still a place it's always been. And I would like to see a little help on the tax base, because that's the main reason we're on the Missouri-Kansas border. We lost 3M. We lost some other businesses going from here, from Kansas to Missouri, because the tax bases are so high. We are second in the state of Kansas for taxes. Johnson County is number one. And I'm thinking, instead of letting us go down the tube, is there any way we keep that new bypass, keep it in closer to Kansas, keeping it closer to Fort Scott, and help us survive?
Tom, thanks for your question, and first of all, thank you for your service to our country. This is an issue in a lot of communities around the state, and I was just in Fort Scott this weekend, and I'm very familiar with what's been going on in your community. You've lost some big employers, and I know that folks are working really hard to try to revitalize the economy in Fort Scott, and this highway project is very important to that. I promise to you, Tom, when I'm elected, I'm going to take a look at that highway project and make sure that it is routed in the right way so that we're being able to give Fort Scott the maximum amount of economic exposure. That Highway 69 project is really important for southeast Kansas, and what I'm really worried about right now is that Sam Brownback's going to take more money from the transportation fund, and that project isn't going to happen. I'm very committed to that project because I know how important it is to Fort Scott and to Pittsburgh and all of southeast Kansas. So we've got to make sure that those projects, we're working with the local folks and doing what we can to help bolster your economy. And I will definitely do that, Tom.
Paul, we have a gentleman named Harry who is concerned about this health care compact that just passed. And I'd throw my 2 cents worth in and say, since I get my health care through Medicare, I'm concerned about that too. So, Henry? Or is it Henry, right? Not Harry.
Harry.
Oh, sorry. Okay,
That's
my
right.
volunteer's writing is not quite as great as it should be. Go ahead.
I get called a lot of things. Mr. Davis, I noticed that the legislature passed and Governor Brownback signed a health care compact, and when you read that, it's a very model-type legislation produced by the American Legislative Exchange Council and put forward, and they signed it, and now Kansas has joined it. I'm curious as to what is that going to do to Medicare and Medicare recipients in the state of Kansas?
Harry, I'm really glad you asked this question because people need to know about this. It is a very, very bad thing. Governor Brownback never should have signed this health care compact because what it would allow the state to do is to take over Medicare. And, Joan, you spoke to this a little bit, and, so many folks out there who receive Medicare, 450,000 in Kansas, believe that they do a fairly good job. There's some issues here and there, but the last thing the state of Kansas needs to be doing is to be getting into people's Medicare. We need to leave Medicare alone and leave it just as it is, and I certainly am going to do that as governor, and I have no intention of getting into the Medicare business. But I hope that you'll keep talking to folks about that because I'm doing it. Because folks need to know about this thing. This is a really, really scary thing for Kansas seniors.
Well, and I would underline that, especially talking to your friends about it, because this passed late in the session, and a lot of people don't know about that compact, but there sure is a lot of chatter about it now. So, Harry, be sure all your friends know. I've got one more caller for you on the line, Paul. We're pretty close to being out of time, but this is a gentleman named Mark who wants to talk with you. Mark, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Mr. Davis, I would like to know why a person should vote for you versus the independent candidate that's running. I know I don't want to vote for the Republican in office, but how about the independent candidate?
Sure. There actually is the only other candidate in the race is a Libertarian candidate, key number, and I hope that when people look at me and they look at the other candidates, they will see that I'm a person who has a proven track record of getting things done. I know how to bring Democrats and Republicans together. That's not always an easy thing to do, but I've got a lot of Republicans that are supporting me because they know that I have been able to do it in the past and I can do it again as governor. I'm also somebody who's going to restore those cuts that have been made to our public schools because I think that's critically important, and I'm somebody who's going to work with communities, listen to business leaders, community leaders, and use proven ways to grow our economy, because I think that's what we absolutely have to do if we're going to move our state forward. Governor Brownback has cut schools, and he's put forward this economic experiment that just isn't working, and it's not going to work, and we just can't afford 4 more years of this.
And Mark, I wonder if when you see all those ads on TV, if you're thinking about Greg Orman, who's the independent candidate. We don't have, and that's in the U.S. Senate race. So the U.S. Senate race is Greg Orman, the independent, versus Pat Roberts, the Republican. And in the governor's race, we have a Democrat, Paul Davis, against a Republican, the current Governor Brownback, and Libertarian Keen Umber. So you can vote for the independent and Paul Davis. I think we're close to being out of time, and I want to thank all of you who have been on the telephones with us tonight. And Paul, especially, I'd like to thank you for taking your time. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to close, but before I do, I want to make a pitch for early voting. The Kansas Democratic Party has been working very hard in this election cycle, trying to convince people that you can vote early. The legislature has made this a possibility, and we now have about a third of the voters in Kansas that get an absentee ballot, or what we now call an advance ballot. They fill it out in the privacy of their home. In fact, many of you on this call may have received a yellow flyer from us that had an application for an advance ballot. In some instances, all you had to do was put your driver's license on the form and sign it and date it, put one of those little stickers that was on the form, and mail it back in to the election commissioner or the county clerk in your county. If you want one of those absentee or advance ballot applications, because the ballots themselves get mailed tomorrow, then go to the website. And Paul, would you tell them what your website is again, where they can get that application?
I sure will, Joan. It is Davis for Kansas, and that's 4 is FOR, davisforkansas.com, and then a / vote early. And so if you go to that website, you can put in a request for an advance ballot, and it'll get mailed to your residence.
And it is so much easier than stewing around. You can vote it in your kitchen at your table when you've got your voting guide that came out in the newspaper or whatever it is. And there's just one thing that is more critical than anything else. This election will be decided based on turnout. It's going to be close, and we need every single Paul Davis supporter to vote and to vote early. So will all of you please make a commitment that regardless of what else is going on in your life, for the future of Kansas and the future of your children, that you will vote in this election. We have a great slate of candidates, starting with the Davis Docking ticket. We have a good person in every single statewide race. Gene Schodorf is running against our Secretary of State, who is doing his darndest to make sure that we don't have people who vote and don't come out. We have Dennis Anderson, who's running for insurance commissioner, who's trying to make sure that you don't have an employee of a big insurance company deciding whether to pay your claims, but you have somebody that's going to look out for your health insurance. And they're all great candidates all the way down the line, from Congress to the legislative races. So please, please go vote. Paul, I'm going to give you the last word.
Well, Joan, thank you very much, and thank you to all of you who have spent some time with us this evening. I know if you're a baseball fan, you've been sacrificing the Royals game, and I want you to know that it is the bottom of the third inning. The Royals are down 1-0, but I feel confident that they're going to come back and win this game tonight. This is a very critical election for our state. Our state is just not headed in the right direction on so many different fronts. And if we don't get it corrected right now, the damage is just going to be even worse. We're going to see more cuts to our schools. We're going to see more stagnant economic growth, and we can just do so much better as Kansans. So I just want to implore you to, first of all, please vote. We've got far too many Kansans and far too many Americans that just don't vote, and it's so important that you participate in the democracy that our founding fathers established some 220 years ago, and make your voice heard. And I also want to ask you to do one other thing, and that is to talk to your friends and neighbors about this election and encourage them to go vote as well. And encourage them to support us, because we've got to get this state back and headed in the right direction again, and I'm very committed to doing that. So thank you again for spending some time with us tonight. If you want some more information about our campaign, go to that website that I talked about, davisforkansas.com, and we would love to have you involved in our campaign over these next 3 weeks here.
Thank you, Paul. This is Joan Wagnon and the Kansas Democratic Party urging you to go vote, and thank you for being with us. Good night, all.